Welcome to the 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Ken Leith.
And I'm Patty Leith. We're your hosts for some compelling dialogue, encouraging our listeners to strengthen their connections
and build strong communities, lifting each other up and connecting in ways that matter.
We named the podcast 4 Bars as a reference to how hard we work to find a 4 Bars connection on our devices.
And we wondered what could happen with relationships if we worked as hard at connecting.
Let's find out. So it's a great panel. We're just super excited. We're going to get started with some questions that we had for them. Be thinking about questions that you have, and let's get the conversation going.
Yes. So don't put the mic down too long, Jim, because we're going to come to you first here. So a couple of things here. I want to start you off. Everyone heard that we ask everyone about their song, favorite song that meant something to them. Can you tell us your song and why you chose that?
Well, anybody know who Dean Martin was? Okay, all right. He was from Steubenville, Ohio. I went to high school in Steubenville, Ohio, and started taking art lessons at age 14 from Dean Martin's voice teacher. And so my wife and I, unfortunately, I'm widowed now. Ann's been gone 2.5 years, but our love song was by Dean Martin, That's Amore.
That's a perfect reason. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so first question we have, Jim, if you would. How did your generation's way of connecting with family, neighbors, and friends shape the sense of belonging? And what lessons could strengthen intergenerational communities today based upon that?
Given a lot of thought to that, how much my life, my generation is actually influenced by World War II. Just like your generation's 9/11, we can go on and on, the Vietnam War, etc. My dad was a pipe fitter. We lived in a trailer, and we moved wherever there was work. Actually, the way I ended up in Arkansas, I was born in Little Rock, never lived in Arkansas, and my mom owned an acre of land in South Arkansas in the Delta that might have been worth $10, but it allowed me to come to Arkansas as an in-state student, and came here in 60, fell in love with Northwest Arkansas. But getting back to the family, it's a passion that I've had, moving around a lot. And then my wife as well, her dad was career military. He was landed at Normandy Day 2, wounded in Battle of the Bulge, career military. So they moved a lot. So the idea of being in one place more than 2 years and establishing family, it literally became a passion, even to the point of choosing a career going into family medicine, which was intergenerational. And I look back at those almost 50 years now of practicing medicine here in Bentonville, and it's like a trifecta as I look back. When I first started, because everybody grew old with me, and the generation, the first 10, 12, 15 years, the fear was AIDS. And then as we all got older, then the fear became cancer, because that was becoming common. And then that last third was aging and dementia. So you can see from that the intergenerational, it's like a timeline. I'm able to look back, just as you do, as you look back on your family history, your background. But it's just, I think it's a core element. And walking over here, since my daughter wouldn't let me drive, thinking about what can I say that would be profound, and it occurred to me thinking about how much we need community. And it's not just us, even animals. We're in poultry land, okay? And we think about free-range chickens, but you look at chickens, they all hang out together. So we're no different. We want to hang out, but the issue, I think, is we need to hang out intergenerational, because it's really easy to get comfortable in our age group. As I look out here, I'm looking at mixed. I see almost equal number of men and women. Guys, ladies, y'all have soul sisters, okay, that you're close to. We don't have that as men. We've got golfing buddies and fishing buddies and that type of thing. And early on, I became aware of the need for me as a man to have a true soul brother. And now for 45 years, there's been as many 12 of us that we meet every Thursday morning, and we're a covenant relationship till death us do part. In fact, we're dying off. I've got one just died Sunday, a dear friend. But where I'm going with that is the importance of community. And I think Bentonville sets an example that the rest of the state, the rest of the nation can look at, because for the work that you do, the work that others do, we're truly an intergenerational community, but we have to be intentional. And I like that word, brother, you mentioned being intentional. So with that, that's why I'm here.
Other thoughts on that question from the other panelists? How your generation actually shapes your way of connecting with family, friends, and neighbors actually shapes the way that you build community now?
It's hard to go our.
Fair enough.
It is hard to go after that. Jim, I think the one thing that maybe I didn't hear from you that happened in my generation is that, well, first of all, I grew up on a city block in El Paso, Texas. And in the suburbs, fortunately, because my parents initially started out right next to the railroad tracks in downtown El Paso. But living in the suburbs and growing up in the, can I say, 50s, we that lived on that block, we all knew each other. And, you know, I ran around with the kids of my neighbors, and whenever we got hungry, whoever's house we were closest to, we would just kind of move in there, and the parents would just feed us. You know, we were just part of the extended family, and I think that sort of freedom that you had to know everybody that you lived with or nearby, they don't see that anymore. You got people that live on top of each other here now, and they hardly even speak to each other. They're so busy getting ready and going off to work and doing their own thing that I don't think they have that sense of neighborly community like we had many years ago.
Great, thank you. The next question, we're going to ask Malia to start us off. We're going to dig into a little bit about technology and change. How has your generation adapted to major shifts in technology, and what can that teach us all about bridging generations divides in the community?
Honestly, our generation grew up with technology, and the technology was changing all the time. So adapting to whatever new tech is coming out doesn't even feel like adapting. It feels like the normal for us. The one time where I really feel like we had to adapt with technology was during COVID. We had to change how we connected and how we used technology. And just to level set where my generation was at the time, we were in high school and college, and COVID kind of divided us because those are really big developmental times. And being isolated for 2 years when you're in high school is going to have a very different effect on you than if you're in a job or college or internship if you've already graduated high school. I was part of that older group of Gen Z. And when we were teens, we really rejected institutions, and that was a big part of community. And teenagers, the point of teenagers in a society is to question the status quo. It's to question and reject parts of society. They come in with fresh eyes and fresh ideas, and they look around and they go, why are we doing it like this? This part feels like it's not the healthiest for us. Why do we do it like this? And my generation looked around, didn't really like institutions. And then you get to your 20s and you start to look around and go, maybe we threw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe some parts of that were good. My generation was looking around right before COVID and realizing that when we rejected institutions and a lot of organized things, we were losing community. And right when we realized we needed that community and we had to figure out how to rebuild community, COVID hit and we were staring at our bedroom walls. My friends and I used technology to adapt, and everyone did. We all know how popular TikTok got during COVID. But my friends and I specifically would play in video games together. We would have this 3D space where we could build a village, we could grow food, we could pull pranks on each other, we could laugh and talk with each other. We were connected all of the time. But as soon as COVID ended, we didn't go in that game anymore. We drove multiple hours to see each other instead of opening our laptop that was right next to us. Because even though that game gave us connection all of the time, we were still lonely. Technology wasn't enough for us to have that sense of community that we needed. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from when we did have to adapt to tech, was that we really need to be building spaces where we can come together as a community, where we can have third spaces and meet people at different life stages than us to get advice, to learn. Yeah.
Thank you, Malia. Any other panelists want to discuss technology and the impact? Any input?
I think that's really insightful about COVID. My kids, actually, my son graduated college during COVID, and I work with a lot of Gen Z in my current role, but in my previous role as well. And in these roles where it's really important to connect with, whether it's clients or the public. And I think the rest of us, older generations, really underestimated how quickly damage can be done to an entire cohort of people that they're at that very formative age and not getting the practice of just connecting with other people, whether it's for personal, like you're talking about, or for professional. And, I think we were all just kind of shocked when we got these, kids back in the office. We were like, they don't know how to look people in the eye. They don't know how to shake a hand. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It was the circumstance. And then it's on us to, figure out how do we nurture this skill and create the space, like you said.
Malia, I think you did a masterful job of explaining that. I mean, I really do. We should snap it up because I think that was beautiful. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I don't know how much I have to add, but I do think it's very important that we surround ourselves with people whose perspective can illuminate something that we don't necessarily think about. So, for example, I am one of 8 in some of my younger siblings. The way they bond with me is not in the way that I bond with them. So I want to take them out to the park, go have a burger. Like, they want to send me TikToks at 3 a.m. And to make them feel seen and valued and like I care about that, I need to watch that video, laugh at it, and respond to them, because that is their way of connecting. You know what I mean? And so I have a unique perspective because my generation, the millennials, we remember what it's like going to MapQuest. Do y'all remember MapQuest out there? Raise your hand. Come on now. Like, we remember, I watched my mom print off like 30 pages. Come on now, like, seriously, we were going to Orlando, Florida from Arkansas. She printed off 30 pages of directions and had to remember to look at signs and read. And so when the app came out, Apple Maps, we was like, hold on, like, what? It'll tell you where to go. Like, you don't have to do anything. And so, I remember what it was like before technology just became ingratiated in everything. And so all of that to say, I can be a little bit biased and I can see things a certain way. But, I mean, Malia's perspective and my little sister's perspective, it just helps me view technology, connection, and belonging in a way that I would have never done so. So I would encourage you all to, do the same.
And Jeremiah, I want to add on to something you said. You mentioned that it's good to surround ourselves with people whose opinions and ideas illuminate things and make us think about new perspectives. When I send my friends a TikTok, it's usually a TikTok that has some commentary on an idea or society. Like, that's what I'm sending. It's a bid for connection in the area of thinking about new ideas. So when you said that, I just was like, that's a cool. Yeah.
I'd like to approach you with a little different perspective. I'm firmly entrenched in technology. I don't know much about it, but I'm entrenched in it. But let's not forget the benefit of a handwritten note. Let me share a story. Those of us that are old enough, when Bill Clinton was governor, youngest governor in the United States, got beat by a man by the name of Frank White, Frank White campaigned on reducing waiting time at the DMV office and beat Bill Clinton. Now, I campaigned against Clinton, and we're not supposed to talk politics, but anyway, his speech that he gave when he lost the election to Frank White was so profound. I'm a note writer. I like to write notes. And I wrote him a note, a handwritten note, and I said, Governor Clinton, first of all, you need to know that not only did I not vote for you, I worked against you, but I appreciate your service as the governor. And in his speech, he said that maybe the Lord was telling him he needed to give up politics. And I said, let me assure you that I think there's a place for you in politics. Wasn't very long, I received a 4-page handwritten letter from Bill Clinton. Even while president, we communicated with some notes. If you were to go to your mailbox today and look, and if you had 6 envelopes there, of those 6, 5 of them were typed, 1 of them was addressed handwritten. Which one would you open? Yeah. So let's not forget the power. I underline the word, the power. It's like touch, the power of touch, but the power of a handwritten note. I cherish those notes. And I'm sure if you go back and you pull out some things, there's ones you're going to cherish. So technology is wonderful, but there's still the power of a handwritten note.
And I love that you pointed that out. I have a shoebox full of handwritten notes and letters from all my friends or teachers or parents. And my friends and I, there's 2 of my friends who have gotten a bit overwhelmed with how often we have to check our texts and how often we're updating each other about the little things in life. So we've switched to snail mail. We handwrite each other letters once every month or 2, and we get to catch each other up on the big things without feeling the pressure to constantly check our texts or call each other. So we still do that. And there's a bit of a comeback where people are trying to be a bit more detached.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you all. I love that dialogue and all the different perspectives. I'll give you really a quick thing of, again, challenges during, for example, COVID. We were driving through town, and thank you for telling me, move it up. As we were driving through town, we saw over on Central, there was corner Central in a second, 2 people standing there with their mask on. And they were younger people, you could tell. And, COVID's just rampant everywhere. We're not, concerned. We're not sure what's going on. But 2 people in human interaction. But what you could tell by the eyes, and Patty and I looked at each other and go, they're learning to flirt with a mask on, can't touch, on the corner. And it's like, so, human nature, we still have this connection point that you need to make, to your point, Jim, and then to all of you. So thank you. We're going to move to our next question here, and that's going to be for Leela. And this one's going to be referring to education and work. And for this one, Lee, if you would, how did your generation approach to education or to career shape opportunities to connect with and learn from other generations?
Yeah, thank you. So when I was asked to be on this panel, I thought, I can talk for a long time, but I'm trying to be a good representative of my generation. So I did a little informal Facebook poll because I'm a power Gen X Facebook user. And the top 3 values that surfaced were grit, self-reliance, and then a lot of other words, some of which are appropriate or not for this venue. But if you have them on a continuum, call it from realism to cynicism. But really, we're very pragmatic. And so, kind of grounded in that because I can definitely identify with those values. I mean, think about work and school. If you think about it, Gen X was really the generation, and maybe the only generation, where we were not only, expected to go to college, we were told this was the only path that would lead to success. And, the boomers that came before us, it was still somewhat of a privilege. The millennials that came after, I feel like there is even more freedom. There's the gig economy, there's entrepreneur life. we, despite all of our rebel exterior image and independence and self-reliance, I feel like our generation really did follow this linear path of if we do these steps, we will be successful. And I think that really shaped our, the way we approach school, the way we approach professional life, just go through the steps. And, personally, I was in school for business. I was in an accounting class. I'm talking to the guidance counselor. He's like, how do you like accounting? I'm like, it's easy. I can do accounting. He's like, oh my gosh, that's your major because it's not easy. And so it was just a pragmatic choice. Did I have a passion for debits and credits? Not really, but it was just a pragmatic choice. I talked to a lot of peers and it's the same thing, whether it's, how we're choosing our neighborhood or what school we went to, what we studied, the kinds of jobs we chose. I felt like we just followed this linear path. And I see the next generation and I love the questioning. And sometimes when you're you have your work hat on, it's frustrating because that generation is behaving differently. But it's just like for the parents out there, it's like when you have independent kids or kids that have a different viewpoint of you, you're like, yes, do it. Don't just follow the rules that I thought I had to follow. So I do think that impacted our generation, those rules we were expected to follow. And I think today it's impacting in the workplace because whether it is generational or whether it is life stage, you have a lot of Gen X that are kind of running the show. And there is kind of that bristling of the next generations pushing on us to make things different, to improve our institutions. So.
Okay, so. Any other feedback, panel?
I said that. I said that.
I'll give you one. In my generation, that's so funny. That there wasn't always the opportunity to go to college. Like you said, it was more of a privilege than anything else, and not everybody was seeking that path. For a lot of us, especially during that time, during the Vietnam War, the path to college was through the military. The military rolled out this real beautiful plan where they would take care of your college for you as long as you served a minimum of 4 years and survived. And so that seemed like the easiest path to education for most of us. But the real education we were getting was serving in the military. That was, I mean, you couldn't even pay us enough for that kind of education that we were getting back then. And in my case, I stuck around for 20 years. So the promise of an education was going to sundown 2 years after I retired from the military. So I didn't even get a chance to use that. Fortunately for me, they sent me to college while I was in the Marine Corps. And I did manage to get my education in art back then.
Interesting. Yeah. Thanks.
Tailgating on what's been said and the incredible value of technology. I mean, just thinking back where we were 10 years ago and where we are now. But then also not only technology, but the concept of building community. And as I've listened to the four of you and as we would talk and interact, it's sort of the question would come up is, where are our storytellers? We can't lose sight of our storytellers because that's a connection that brings generation to generation to generation. And it's almost like we need to have that as the forefront because the clans, whatever, there was always a storyteller. Now, I've sort of become the storyteller for my clan. The problem is I've told so many stories, I don't know which ones are true and which ones are not. My daughter's sitting out there, my son-in-law, they heard countless Uncle Deacon stories. But a dear friend, they're here. I'd hope they would be here, Jack and Marguerite Thomas. And Jack he's the former mayor of Park City, Utah, now lives in Bentonville. And he and I got to talking about storytellers. I've got an Uncle Deacon. He's got me beat. He's got an Uncle Frank. And Uncle Frank got struck by lightning, and it changed his polarity to where he was anti-gravity, and they would have to put lead in his shoes because he would go up to the sky. And they couldn't find Uncle Frank because he would be up in a tree up somewhere. And obviously, Uncle Frank never existed, but how that would connect the family. So if you meet Jack, say, and it may not be Frank, whoever he is, but he may be up in a tree or in the cloud or whatever, but how we can take storytelling and we can connect our family, and that my story will connect to your story. And it's not an age issue, but it's that connection, it's that DNA that's part of our soul. So let's not forget the storytellers.
Storytelling is key. Yeah. Awesome. So our next question is, Ray has agreed to lead off, but I'm going to pause before I ask the question. And Ray, can you tell us about your song that you picked? Staying Alive.
I actually picked two, but Staying Alive, well, that's pretty obvious. But I'm a child of the 60s, and that was my teenage years, from the assassination of Kennedy up until whenever I managed to get out of high school. But the Staying Alive is, first of all, it's a movie and a song that my wife and I both enjoy because it's peppy. The Bee Gees, for some reason, they were so connected to how teenagers interacted with one another, and everything that they say or sang about or wrote about is so very true, and that's why they're still famous to this day, even though I think there's only one of them remaining.
Yeah, awesome.
And then the other song was the Way We Were by Barbra Streisand, and that was a song from a movie that my wife went to see, and my wife and I went to see when we were dating.
Very cool. Very cool. The Four Bars podcast has been brought to you by Edges Inc., a growth advisory firm based in Bentonville, Arkansas. I founded the company in 2001.
Edges promotes growth of people, companies, and ideas. Our team collaboration tool, called Interface Methods, is a basis for teams to work together more collaboratively, understand each other, and accept differences and address challenges together.
We also started a nonprofit called Unform Your Bias. We teach kids and their adult influencers how to utilize storytelling as a means to reduce bias in the world. We hope you'll check us out, subscribe to our podcast, and look at our websites.